Un, dos, tres.
Good afternoon. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. If everybody could come in and get your seats and get settled. Good afternoon. We'll be getting started in about 2 minutes. Please grab your box lunches, come inside, have a seat, and get settled.
Sí. Ya dijo, ya. 1 second. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Please, can you please be quiet? We will start the session for the lunch session this afternoon. We have extremely amazing speakers this afternoon, and my name is Delia Valles-Rosales, and I am this time a department chair for Texas A&M at Kingsville. And I am very happy to be here this afternoon with you. And I will introduce you to the next person. And it is my colleague. And it happens to be that we are working in some other projects and we'll be working in other projects in the future. And we really appreciate, we know that you are taking your lunch, you are eating, you are enjoying, but please, we really need a little bit of your time to spend some time with us and enjoy it. This is a very delightful presentation that you will hear today, and we need your attention for that. So this afternoon, it is my pleasure to introduce to Dr. Omar and Dr. Omar Alberto Movil Cabrera is an associate professor in chemical engineering at the Polytechnic University of Puerto Rico, Universidad Politécnica de Puerto Rico. He received his doctorate degree in chemical engineering at the University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez, and his bachelor's degree in engineering from the University of Atlántico, Colombia. Now he will introduce to the our speaker this afternoon, and thank you so much for your time. And we will have some questions at the end of the speaker's presentation. Please start writing your question, reserve them for the end, and we will have some time for that. And please, again, we need you to be a little bit quiet and enjoy the presentation. Thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Buen provecho, familia. My name is Dr. Omar Movil, and for me, it's a great pleasure to introduce the speaker of this plenary session, Dr. Manu Platt, not only because he is an exceptional scientist, but also because he is a role model for thousands of minority students and professionals, people of color like you, like me, across the country. Dr. Manu Platt is director of the NIH-wide Center for Biomedical Engineering Technology Acceleration, also known as a Beta Center, housed within the National Institute of Biomedical Imaging and Bioengineering Intramural Research Program. Formerly, Platt was a professor and associate chair of graduate studies at the Department of Biomedical Engineering at Georgia Tech and Emory University. As a scientist, he received numerous grants and research support from public and private research institutions, including, among others, NIH, NSF, the International AIDS Society, and the Georgia Cancer Coalition. Platt earned a bachelor's degree in biology from Morehouse College in Atlanta and a PhD in biomedical engineering at Georgia Tech and Emory University. and he was also a postdoc in biological engineering at MIT. Dr. Platt co-founded the project called Engages, engaging new generation at Georgia Tech through engineering and science. This program provides paid research experience, lab experience to African-American high school students from Atlanta. I think that some of them are here, right? So Dr. Platt is also a fellow of the Biomedical Engineering Society and the American Institute for Medical and Biological Engineering. So please welcome Dr. Manu Platt.
Hello, can you hear me? This works? All right. Wow, if you could put up the slides. I am super excited to always be back at ERN, Emerging Research Networks. I've been coming for years, even when it was HBCUF, and happy to share some words with you this afternoon. Let me get the slide. So I've titled this History Doesn't Repeat, but It Rhymes, and how we should really make the most of the moment. And I'm really coming at this to you all from a mentor standpoint, and also to hope that this audience also takes in about being good mentees, because your mentors have seen things before that they're trying to help guide you through, okay? But we're gonna start with this brief video that, oh, I'm sorry, I also got this in. What? Oh, the clicker's working, yeah. So as mentioned, I currently, as of today, I'm still a professor at Georgia Tech Biomedical Engineering Department, but starting February 27th, I will be moving my research lab to the NIH, the intramural programming, and becoming the director of the Beta Center at NIBID. First move in 13 years, and I don't like change, but here we go. But I want to show this video because I think this really captures who I am as a professor.
The AAAS Mentor Award honors university faculty and administrators with distinguished records of mentoring and leadership to increase the amount of underrepresented minority students, women, and first-generation students who earn a PhD in the STEM field. This year, we honor Manu O. Platt, biomedical engineer and associate professor of the Georgia Institute of Technology, as well as diversity director of the Center on Emergent Behaviors of Integrated Cellular Systems. Platt has a passionate commitment to mentorship and diversity that begins with students' tenure in his research group and continues throughout their career. His commitment as a mentor extends to their professional and personal development. He nurtures both in his role as director of the Georgia Tech Enhancing Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Educational Diversity Program, which provides freshmen from underrepresented groups social and academic support to thrive in their pursuit of a biomedical degree. He pushes students to realize their full potential by pushing them to grow through exposure to diverse experiences. And he humanizes the often understated difficulties that surround the various professional arenas, academic and otherwise. Mentees appreciate his ready smile and the disarming candor with which he speaks on his successes and failures, as well as the challenges he's faced as an African-American male living in the U.S. These gifts have helped him pass on his fundamental values of compassion, humanity, and community to his mentees. And his trainees have emerged as independent experts and thought leaders in their respective fields of study. In addition to his college trainees, Platt helps younger students through his involvement with Project Engages, which he co-founded and directs. This Georgia Tech NSF-funded program engages underrepresented high school students from low socioeconomic backgrounds in scientific research. On the administrative level, he has strategically advocated for increased recruitment and retention of underrepresented minority students, as well as metrics for enrollment to be reconsidered for enhanced inclusion. Platt has earned many accolades as a champion for diversity and empathetic mentorship. He is honored for his advocacy and support of students to realize their full potential and grow through exposure to diverse experiences. Manu O. Platt, recipient of the 2021 AAAS Mentor Award.
So, thank you. And as you know, AAAS co-sponsored this meeting. And when I got this award, I actually cried. And I'll tell you why. This was mid-pandemic, and I didn't even know I was being nominated for this award. My former students put together a package, submitted it to AAAS for the nomination, and I only received a notice when I got the award. They give out one per year. And I'm so thankful this last year, AAAS asked me to be on the review panel for the award. And I saw the level of competition to be selected. And I called my former students who had nominated me the year before and thanked them all over again. So I am I'm very excited about this and thankful to AAAS for this award and for having me here today. So I am also thankful to my own mentors, and one of them is Shirley Malcolm, who you all met this morning. But in 2015, that was my first time ever giving a plenary at a national conference, which was at the ERN conference here in 2015. And there was an ice storm. The previous speaker couldn't make it, and they tapped me, Shirley and Yolanda George, to do this. And so the opportunity to put that on my resume, plenary. And again, I'm glad that Shirley Malcolm's maybe not on stage right now, because as you all saw this morning, she will walk over and tackle me when I start to get over time. But I have to learn that lesson. She's tough. She's tough. So I want to thank, again, Shirley Malcolm and AAAS. But also then the very next plenary at an international meeting that I did was in 2017 for my own professional society, the Biomedical Engineering Society. I'm a biomedical engineer, I'm trained in that field. And this is in 2017, and this picture had evoked so much energy in the country. Think about how long ago this was, right? This is when Colin Kaepernick lost his job for taking a knee during the national anthem. So I presented at the Biomedical Engineering Society. I was given the diversity award for many of the work you saw for the mentor training. And what I really wanted to make sure I talked to them about is that the things that they see happen to me. And so I opened there as I will open here. In case you didn't know, I'm Black. My mom is Black, my dad is Black, my grandfather's Black, my grandmothers are Black, my cousins are Black. We are Black. I have in my family high cholesterol, high blood pressure, bad credit, diabetes, people that are HIV positive. I have people that are currently incarcerated, people that have been incarcerated, have gotten out of jail. We're Black, but we also have union workers, we have therapists, we have network security analysts, we have teachers, and we have biomedical engineers in my family. Thank you. But you will find as you advance in your career, people start to say, oh, you're different than them. I'm not, I'm Black. Things that happen to Black people in this country happen to me. And at this time, yes, I have been pulled over by the police. Yes, I have been scared for my life. I'm not as young as you are, so I had to try to figure out how to do the video camera on my phone and flip it around because I'm not even a selfie guy at the time. Yes, it was the Georgia Tech police that pulled me over and then had two other cruisers pull up and roll up on me in my BMW with Atlanta plates with my Morehouse tags, which we know Morehouse is all Black men. Do you think I stole the car? And when did they ask me to pull over? While sitting at a red light, just as I was leaving campus. I'm sitting still. So all the things that happen to Black people happen to me. And it's important for me to tell my colleagues that, because when you start talking crazy about Black people, you're talking crazy about me, right? And this James Baldwin quote just resonates so deeply. To be Black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. And as we move out of our safe spaces to achieve all the things that we like to achieve, we are then exposed to those who want to put these other things on us and think we don't know what it is, and they can say other things about us. But it's not just me. I'm the second oldest of 6 boys. So I have 5 brothers. Of course, my dad has high blood pressure. He's been trying to raise 6 Black men in this country since 1977 when my older brother was born. And I remember having conversations with him around 2020, like, how are you doing this? Because I've had cousins shot and killed, not by police, but at other violent ends and means when they were in their 20s or 30s. This is actually at one of the funerals of one of my cousins who had been killed in North Carolina. But that was what he just praised. And so when I think about all of that, I think about how the world is today. And I know there's a lot going on for you young people. And this is the first time you all are seeing all of these things that are going on. And we are here at this wonderful conference celebrating your science and engineering and research and all the academic pursuits that you're doing. But we all then, if we walk out of this building, are exposed to the world. And the world looks at us in all the ways that they've chosen to pay attention to. And it's some difficult times, but I then like to think back because, again, I went to Morehouse College with a liberal arts education. They made me take a history class. And the reason they tell you that is because you learn history so you don't repeat it, right? You're supposed to know what happened. So I'm going to give a little history lesson here today because I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And that was a whole different time in America for Black people. We were told growing up, you won't live past 21 or you'll be in jail or dead. That was what the messages were and what we kind of internalized by just watching public mainstream. But let me take you back to 1997. I won't go all the way back, but as we talk about even police brutality, NWA had the song F the Police, that came out in 1989. So for people who are just starting to realize these things, we were raised in that. Well, let's take you back to 1997. Anybody was alive in 1997? Give me a shout out. All right. There was a scandal where the president was involved in a sex scandal. You all have seen that recently, right? Again, history rhymes. Ellen DeGeneres, everybody knows Ellen, famous, hundreds of millions of dollars, popular TV show ended last year. She had a sitcom in 1997, and she came out on that sitcom. Cover of Time magazine, it went big, right? And then she lost her job for it in 1997. The world that I'm growing up in. This impacted me profoundly. 1997 was the death of Biggie Smalls. Tupac Shakur died in September of 1996. Tupac, when he got shot, me and my brothers were late night watching on MTV News because it was like breaking news. We're like, there's no way he dies. Rich people don't die of dumb stuff. They're rich. Tupac had been shot before, 9 bullets, and survived. There's no way he dies from this. He died that night, 25 years old. And then as you can see, 6 months later, Biggie Smalls, I was a Northeast guy. That was my dude. Biggie Smalls got shot. He died at 25. So when I saw these messages, black men ain't gonna make it out of jail or shot before 21, and then you see these rich people die, woo, it hits you. And I don't assume that we're the only ones that this is an issue for. Young people today, there are rappers that are being killed all across this country. Nipsey Hussle, of course, we all know about that. And then most recently from Atlanta, Takeoff was killed while he was in Houston. My baby brother is actually 23 years younger than me. He's a junior at Morehouse College. He is a huge Migos fan. So I had to call him. I was like, are you okay? Because I know how it hit me when my rap heroes had been killed. And he played it off like, oh man, it sucks. But you know, but it is okay that these events that happen in the world impact you. You can be in education, be a scientist, be an engineer, but you are also a human being, and these world events hit you. Princess Diana died my freshman year of college, 1997. It's back in the news because Harry, her younger son, is married to a black woman, and it is just a problem in England. But again, at this time, she was as big a star as Michael Jackson and even larger. And for a rich white woman to die in a car accident, rich people don't die from dumb things, was my thinking, or we are all vulnerable to it. And so again, not being this Diana file, but she was everywhere all the time. And you start to get a sense of what's going on in the world and the media and these other things. But really the dominating thing that I remember from my teens was HIV/AIDS. This is a scene from the movie Philadelphia. Tom Hanks won his first Academy Award for playing this HIV positive white gay man who was at a law firm. They fired him for having AIDS. Denzel Washington was his homophobic and AIDS-ophobic lawyer who then had to learn and represent him because no other lawyer would represent Tom Hanks. But it was in all of pop culture. There was these black doctors on ER. ER was our Grey's Anatomy. Black doctors, heterosexual. She tested HIV positive because her husband had an affair. How do you then do medicine and can you see patients if you're HIV positive? Salt and Pepper, best female MCs, right? They had a song called Let's Talk About Sex. They did a remix called Let's Talk About AIDS, so that the young people who listen to their music would understand about safe sex, safe drug needle practices and the rest, because you had to get the message out, particularly to Black and brown people. TLC, we all know their Waterfalls and all the others. They came out at first wearing condoms all over their outfits to spread the information about using safe sex. Michael Jackson, my hero, everybody knows Michael Jackson. This is the young white man, is Ryan White. A white teen got HIV, he was a hemophiliac from a blood transfusion. And that town turned on him so fast, kicked him out of school. And it was all the stigma that we've seen happen to Black and brown people, happened to that young white man. And then Arthur Ashe as well, the tennis legend, got HIV from a blood transfusion, and then he also passed. Because when I was growing up, everyone who got HIV was dying of AIDS within 10 years. Imagine coming into your teen years, sexually maturing, puberty, and this is the thing that's out in the world. It affects who you are and how you think about things. And it wasn't everywhere, and I love that media campaigns. But I graduated high school in '97, but in 1996 was the first year that there was a drop in deaths due to AIDS. My whole teenage years, everyone was dying if you got it, and it was increasing. Finally, the drug triple cocktail came out in 1996. First year we saw a drop in deaths due to AIDS, and I graduated high school in 1997, which was a great day. I was valedictorian. White people were mad about it. I was the second Black valedictorian of my high school. My hat fits me well there because I didn't have dreadlocks then. But you see it sitting at the top of my head, like out of DC from Odyssey. But also in 1997, Joe Biden was our senator from Delaware. My dad was in the Air Force. So I graduated high school in Dover, Delaware. Everybody knew Joe Biden in Delaware. Small state, he was everywhere. You all know who Joe Biden is, right? Okay. History rhymes. Then I went to Morehouse College. So my high school in Dover, Delaware was about 50-50 white, Black, but I didn't know that because in my classes, I was in the AP class and the honors classes. It was me and the smart Black girl. Okay? It was us two. And so we were cool. We were real tight, right? And she acted like she didn't want to be there all the time. But I was like, Shay, you're smart. Like, quit playing. But so I applied to several other schools. But then when I visited Morehouse, for those that don't know, it's an HBCU all-male school in Atlanta, Georgia. Being on campus just blew my mind. Because I would tell you at that time, because of the messages I was receiving, I was like, I am the only smart Black male in the United States. Because in my classes, I am the only smart Black male in my classes. There's a smart Black female, but I am the only smart Black male. And to be at that campus and to watch all of these smart young Black men walk around, speak to each other, say hello, be nice, blew my mind on the floor. And I almost thought I don't fit in because I was called white back in my high school because I was reading and doing all these things. Even my brothers called me white, but they were smart too. So I was like, well, I fit, but I said, I've got to give it a try. And it was the best decision I made because what I got out of going to Morehouse, so shout out to all my HBCU folks out here, is that it wasn't about me being a Black man in this country. That everybody was. So now people are looking at you for all the other things that you are. And then that allows you to find all of the other things that you are. What do you really like musically? Do you like hip hop because you're supposed to? Or do you like rock and roll? Do you like jazz? Do you like country? Because there were all those types of Black men in school. And I learned that there are Black men from all different types of socioeconomic backgrounds, all different types of languages and cultures, all different types of sexual identities, and even gender identities. All of that is happening. So Black men is not this one thing, and it allows you to find all the parts of who you are. And that was powerful. And everybody was smart. So getting good grades is what you're supposed to do. Because if you're not, what are you doing? Powerful for me. These are my friends, and that's when you begin to find your crew or your tribe, as different people say. And one of my messages I want you all to get your crew and stick with your crew. They will grow with you, they will see you through tough times, but they will also understand you in ways that you cannot imagine. So that's my crew there. This freshman year, had a nice skinny neck, started growing my locks. I was in a play my freshman year at Morehouse. Several of those people in that play are actually now on Broadway. That's a cutout from a photograph. But my tight four, we're still tight. Out of the four of us, that's us at Morehouse 2019, 4 master's degrees. I don't have a master's degree, so one of my friends has 2 doctorates, 2 entrepreneurs. They all live in DC. I'm the one that stayed in Atlanta. So when I moved to DC, we're gonna have a grand reunion, of course. And one of them left his job as now famous podcaster and interviews celebrities. But my road is twisty, and I think that's what ERN is about, showing you that you can be who you are and the road can take different turns to get to where you wanna be. Dr. J.K. Haynes was chair of the bio department when I was there. And my senior year, he introduced me to Bob Nerum at Georgia Tech. And I began to work in his research lab while I was at Morehouse.
I've been waiting for you.
And then commencement happens, May 20th, 2001. For all the undergrads, get ready. And it's important to know, commencement doesn't mean the end. It actually means the beginning. And there's so many beginnings, the whole world starts all over again once you have your degree. And then you'll have to make decisions of what will I do in this new world that I now can function in. And you can see my 4-4. So the year was 2001, great time, right? Well, I met a new crew. Shout out to my Packard scholars over here at this table. There's a few of them. And the Packard Fellows program was run by AAAF. And their goal was to take students that went to historically Black colleges and universities and give them a fellowship for those of us that were going to get PhDs in STEM fields. Most of us went to white institutions for our PhDs. So the culture shock the young brother on stage was talking about last night from UIUC, we were all in that world. But what they did is they had senior cohorts who could be like, let me tell you what you're about to walk into. Let me tell you how you get ready for it. And let me tell you how you are ready for it. And that support group that we had built us in ways that we are still strong. I got this fellowship in 2001. What year is it now? 2023? My people. So whoever made that picture, that was on the cover. Because I graduated in 06, and that's when I gave my graduation talk. But they were also there when I did my first keynote at ERN in 2015. Shout out to them. And so that's my new tribe, because they know what it is for that next phase, and they share that experience with me. So when the world doesn't get it, go to my people and be like, y'all going through this? And they can get it and help me get through. So I started my PhD at Georgia Tech Emory in their biomedical engineering department. My undergrad was in biology, switching to engineering, white knuckling it at times, but you got to keep it your crew to get through the coursework. But what else was happening in 2001? Well, in 2000, that was my very first time voting for president. And we had the Bush v. Gore election. Anybody ever heard about an election results going to the Supreme Court? Y'all heard anything about that? It happened in 2000. And it happened again in 2020. History rhymes. This was unsettling to the country, for your vote to maybe not be decided like you. Wild times. But that was also the year of the dot-com bubble burst. The economy tanked in 2009. All my friends who were going to Wall Street, not all, but many of my friends going to Wall Street jobs, big, fat paying jobs. Some of them lost that job. They were like, we don't want you to start work. Keep the signing bonus, but we don't have a job for you because the economy has tanked. It's crazy. Grad school was not like that. Science has saved me, because you can still start the grad program and you're gonna get your stipend and keep going. Science saves, okay? But also Aaliyah died that year in a plane crash. Aaliyah's my age, would have been my age, was my age. In a plane, a private plane, while filming the video for Rock the Boat, when the More Than a Woman video had already been filmed, it was way more better than Rock the Boat. Impacts us because you all know, we are close to these popular figures that seem like they're like us. We have been with Aaliyah since 9th grade when she first came in. Impacted my first semester of grad school, but of course, 2001, September 11th happened. I'm 2 weeks into grad school, driving from Emory over to Georgia Tech, and this comes on the news. And young people, you've grown up in this world, but for those of us that knew a world before, the world shifted post 9/11. Absolutely shifted, and we all had to adapt and adjust. And it wasn't easy, but it happened. And so when you think about world events and, oh, things are happening now, history rhymes. So finished grad school, I worked with this guy, Hanjung Joe, was fantastic. And then I went off to MIT to do a postdoc. Whole other thing, moving from Atlanta to Boston. Catch me later, I'll tell you about it. I met several other mentors that saw me through, some that looked like me, many that didn't, but all of them that had a word for me that I could listen to. And again, I want to stress again, be a good mentee. Because when you're a good mentee, your mentors will give you more opportunity, more advice, more things that help you along the way. So I graduated in 2006, did my postdoc again, talk to me later, we'll talk about that. 2008. Stock market crashed again. Real estate bubble burst. I had purchased a condo in grad school with one of those bad mortgages that they were selling all to Black people. I had one, actually still have it to this day. So the value of my house went from 130,000 to 30,000. No, I should have sold before I went to Boston. But what also happened that year in January 2009? Come on, victories, come on. And I think we always look to the good things and they bring us joy. This is what happened January 2009. He started his job January 20th, 2009. I started my professor job January 1st, 2009. So he was kind of behind me a little bit. But what a way for you to walk into this world and to look at what is possible, right? And then the things that his administration that opened up space for young people to do the work that they'd like to do. So I opened up the Platt Lab, Repair, Regeneration, and Remodel, Georgia Tech, January 2009, in our Biomedical Engineering department. And I really studied tissue remodeling, how you go from healthy tissue to diseased tissue, and then how we can study processes that stop that. That little thing you see walking across is a biobot made of skeletal muscle cells, that if you put electricity in the media bag, the muscle cells contract and the bot walks. My lab's job was, why does a bot break in the middle? What proteins, are they expressing that degrade the structures that cause it not to work? So you can engineer like a functional time of this biobody. But one of my main research areas though is sickle cell disease. As I mentioned earlier, in case you forgot, I'm Black. And sickle cell disease predominantly affects African Americans in the United States. And it's a terrible thing, it's not cured. And what really gets me is that young people with, oh, sorry, that's in America, but there are 300,000 babies born every year worldwide with sickle cell disease. And you can see in this exploded map where you see it dominant. But the US it's mostly African Americans because of the slave trade. So history impacts us to this day. History runs. But it's also in Arabic countries and in the Indian subcontinent. And up to 90% of these children die in the first 5 years of life. I use science to motivate me to do work to help others. And this was a motivator to me. But the biggest thing was that young kids with sickle cell disease suffer from strokes. Now, I have been studying strokes in people 60, 70, 80 years old, but to find out that young kids between the ages of 2 and 5 years old are having strokes was like devastating to me. And so we began to tackle this problem, bringing our innovative perspectives to it. And that's the other important thing, young people, the perspective and all of the ways Tupac died, Biggie died, being Black, growing up in this world with all these things makes you look at a scientific question very differently than the person sitting next to you. Definitely very different than the old school people that have been studying it. So we brought some fresh perspectives to it and got some big funding to do this. But it also makes me, I want to stress the importance of being a scientist activist. Think globally, act locally. This actually used to be on the after school programs when I was growing up. But then act globally, because the world had shrunk pre-COVID where you could now start to impact other cultures. There was a whole discussion this morning. There was a brilliant question from a high school scholar asking about how you could impact West African countries. We have that ability. We are in the richest country in the world, and we maybe can take some of that and apply it to others. But also, global health concerns are health disparities in the United States. As I showed you, sickle cell disease is a global health problem, but in the United States, it predominantly affects African Americans. Understudied, underfunded, and underdrugged for those reasons. So we can now come to grips with that. And if you need a motivator, because it will impact a larger population if you need to make money. And then really understanding this importance when studying health disparities. You all are scientists. We need to take this out to our communities, educate our communities, just like Salt and Pepper and TLC were doing to educate us about HIV/AIDS when it was huge. We can now take that out and do it instead of waiting for someone else to. So I bring sickle cell to my classroom. I teach about it to the undergrads at Georgia Tech. They're supposed to be so great, #2 program in the country. Hey, if they're gonna be the next generation, let's get them with some new idea to solve this long-term problem. And I bring in people living with sickle cells. You can see they are regular people with this devastating disease. We also bring the classes to the Sickle Cell Foundation. We raise money for them. We do the annual walk run. That's a big fundraiser for children with sickle cell. And I'm also on the board of directors of the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia. As a scientist, you can have impact in more ways than just at your bench. But also I got into the HIV/AIDS research. I told you what I was experiencing in the 80s and 90s. How, when the opportunity came to bring new investigators into HIV/AIDS, could I not jump on it? Plus, there was a free trip to Cape Town, South Africa. And they were paying for the food too. And Cape Town has great wines. But it was really about the motivational question. And so I went to, and I applied, and I was accepted there, and it was super exciting. But what I learned in that HIV/AIDS world, the scientists were the first activists for their clients. The clinical doctors had to fight for the rights and fight against stigma. So they would always have protests at the World AIDS Conference every year. So this year, this second year going, the theme was rights here, right now. And there was a march through the streets of Vienna, Austria, part of the conference, okay, with a concert in a castle. And Vienna, they actually put the AIDS ribbon on their parliament. This is before the United States ever did that, okay? Where is HIV blooming in the United States? Takes us back again to the morning conversation with Dr. Bullock, where the Black people are, in the South. Look at those numbers. That's also where heart disease and diabetes are also dominating in the United States. So that morning conversation, it all links. So I was not able to get collaborations and science samples in Atlanta because, I don't know. But my colleague I met in South Africa was like, hey, if you can make it over here, we collect 400 patients a day at our clinic. South Africa then, and even still now, has the highest rate of HIV positive individuals. And back then it was up to 25% of their population in certain areas is HIV positive. So we began to go over to South Africa, which really got me thinking about low cost technologies and ways of like taking what we do here, making it simple because they have people working in rural clinics that are just regular workers, right? They didn't have the education, but they are there to help the people in their community. So we wanted to interface with them, but also to dumb down and simplify and reduce the cost of some of our technology, which requires multiple trips, lots of learning, and it's an engineering marvel to do that. But that also led me with a connection to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where we had access to children's samples as well as adult samples. And again, because I can't go all the time, because Georgia Tech wants me to teach, then we would actually start to train up the graduate students at those universities, leave the supplies and reagents there so they can collect the samples and publish on their own, empowering those local scientists and not treating them as a sub-partner, but that we are equal partners, bring your ideas. And this has been a fantastic collaboration. My last visit was 18 though, because then, pandemic. But also we learned that there were some terrible policies around HIV/AIDS in the United States. So my younger brother, he's there in the picture there. He also went to Morehouse. He's a political scientist. Turns out the federal government doesn't listen to science policy when making federal policy. I was surprised as a scientist because the federal government pays for the science. My brother's like, yeah, but why do you think we're doing this? So anyways, but we actually ended up doing a study together to look at how the scientific breakthroughs in HIV influence foreign federal policy. We called it From Grid to Gridlock because HIV was first called gay-related immunodeficiency in the earliest days. And I don't know how many of you have a younger sibling. It was really difficult working with him. And so that was our first and only paper together until he gets his act together, okay? But then I'm in my third year of my professor, and the year was 2012. Doing all these wonderful things, I feel like, and then we got the opportunity to start Project Engagements, a high school research program. This older senior white guy, Bob Nairn, that I worked with my senior at Morehouse, had this epiphany. He could raise money and push the administration in ways that I cannot. He said, Mama, you want to do this? Absolutely. I have been mentoring young people since I was like in 8th grade. Even at Morehouse, I was working with middle school and high school students. So of course, when I started my faculty job, I had been reaching out to high school, going to do science days and going to a classroom. We had connections, let's go. And I think that's for all of us. Reach back and pull someone else up. I think back to, I started a program I was in Dover, Delaware with Delaware State University. Anyone from Delaware State here? Okay, all right. There was a program that started in my 6th grade. It was called FAME. Forum to Advance Minorities in Engineering, okay? That was run by the Doctors Ofosu. Dr. Mildred Ofosu, who's a physics professor, and her husband, I forget his name, and we would have Saturday science and math things twice a month. And then by the time we got to 8th grade, we got to stay on campus for the summer. We are not having these high school students stay on Georgia Tech's campus, okay? But I now know that what they fed into me, you have to give back. And now I see on the other side how difficult it is running a program like that, but how important it is to do so. So far, this is our 10th year of running Project Engages. Isn't that crazy? All soft money. Are you serious? Shout out. Applause. Over 140 students have come through our program. And that may not be the largest number that we might think of, but those students have not all, but 80% have then gotten STEM degrees in college, right? They're out in the workforce. Some of them are in graduate school, so they will grow that number. But what this program also does, as mentioned in a wonderful introduction, is it pays them to come and do lab work. So I was working at Hardee's, but I was in high school to make money. Coming home smelling like chicken grease. This is when Hardee's did fried chicken. Chicken grease and burgers, they get to go home just smelling like, whatever. And their feet don't have to hurt like they did for me, but it builds their resume over time. And they've been attending the International Science and Engineering Fair. One of our students has got Bermuda that he's going last night. So this has been very exciting for us to do. And there's a picture of them from last night. They didn't ask the question last night. Hopefully they will ask some questions today. We had one break that earlier. But it's just been fantastic working with these young people. And it's almost being selfish. You're like, oh, you're trying to give back and give back. It's a little selfish. I like to see Black people around my workplace. And if I could help bring them in that way, why not do it? And I've always had them in my lab. They bring fresh ideas, innovative perspectives to what we're doing. Got you. Okay, so that hit, and it hit everybody, not just you young people, it hit all of us. And they told us keep calm, but it was hard to keep that calm because racism, right? Which is always a thing. And it actually hollowed out a whole generation of young Black men. COVID had a Black men aged 35 to 44, 9 times likely die of COVID. That is my age range. I was very afraid of COVID. My family lives in northern New Jersey where it first started to hit, and Atlanta where there were no rules around it at all. Whew. And then other marginalized groups began to be at risk. LGBTQ were at great risk because many don't want the vaccine. What? And I knew I had to fight my family about the vaccine. Really? And so again, this being a scientist activist comes back into play. You all now have felt that. We have to now out ourselves as scientists so we can talk to our friends and our family members and talk about the science, not like, I don't know, I'm cool too, I don't know, I don't get it. No, you got to be the ones. So I started talking to churches, virtual church sessions with my uncle who's a pastor, my dad the pastor, and then they would have their friends. This is why we all need to be vaccinated. Here's the science. What are you afraid of? And I heard all the conspiracy theories because my brother had like half of them, right? Because I'm Black. We don't have a Black family. But then the year was 2021. Woo! Young people, you have never seen this before. Guess what? None of us had ever seen this before. We all have to adapt to what's happening here. But then this happened. Then this happened. Then old Joe, that I knew from back when, this happened. I mean, and then this happened, right? Like, it's iconic. And so just as I close out, I'm gonna close out right now. Again, when the pandemic first hit, I was like, I know science, I know how these things work. I knew the virus was looking for receptors and I was in a state that didn't care. But this article came out, you can see it's about 2 weeks after everything shut down. Came out in Chronicles of Higher Education. I see someone nodding over there. And it just hit me because all my colleagues were like, oh, we're gonna just go to our mountain house and take the family and we're gonna write review articles. And I was like, I am in the fetal position on the floor in my condo in Southwest Atlanta, not going outside. My mama's gonna send me some masks because she sews and then we can try it. But here's this person, this author, she has survived coup attempts in her home country. And she puts this opening paragraph about global catastrophes change the world. And this pandemic is very much akin to a major war. Again, this is 3 years ago. Even if we contain the COVID-19 crisis, the legacy will live with us for years, perhaps decades. It will change the way we move, build, learn, and connect. Things are different. And those of us that are pining or longing for the days, it's different. And I applaud you young people. You are the ones that had to do the virtual learning, but you know how to do it. You all are the ones that had to meet friends over the internet and build things. You are the ones that did it, right? So what opportunities come from that, we hope to see. So as I close, challenges exist, will continue to exist as part of our human living condition, but we adapt. The times will mold you and they will drive your decisions. Told you how things have molded what I do and how I approach the world and the science that I want to do. Let them change you. Don't be this unresponsive stalwart. We've seen difficult times, adapted and survived, as have those coming before us. I talk about growing up in the 80s and 90s. My parents will tell you about the 60s and 70s, and people before then will tell you what they went through. We all are living through something from having to adapt. But what we older people are asking, we are counting on your adaptability and creativity in these times. You all are going to change the next way that people learn. You all will create the next way people do something. We've got our old ways, we got to change out of them. We're a little stuck. That's the opportunity that we put on you all to then make the world better for you all. So I want to thank you all. Think about your impact. I showed this picture, my 10-year Platt Lab reunion. They threw me a surprise reunion where my high school students have come back, undergrads, grad students, and this is impact that's happening and changing. And I look forward to seeing the impact you all will bring. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you very much for your motivated and inspiring presentation. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And now we will have a 10-minute session for questions and answers. And after that, if we don't have enough time for questions, so please approach the speaker, and then so you will have a chance, an opportunity to talk to him. So we have 4 microphones distributed on this area. Can you please line up in there? And so again, 10 minutes for questions. Thank you.
Please.
Hello, my name is Michaela. I'm a fall 2022 graduate of Virginia State University. Thank you. I first wanted to just give thanks for your presentation and your emphasis on mentioning your Blackness and your closeness to your Blackness being an academic. I felt that that was really important to hear. I wanted to know, I know that the initiatives for retaining Black students in STEM has been a really important initiative for you. I wanted to hear your perspective on what do you feel are barriers to increasing diversity in the faculty bodies at research universities.
Yeah, right. Because if we bring the students in, but they don't make it all the way up the ranks, right? So that's interesting. So when I started grad school, there were a lot of other Black students with me in grad school who wanted to be professors. I didn't. I was going to go work at NASA. By the time I graduated, they were all like, I'm over it. I'm leaving. And I was like, I thought we wanted to have a Black professor. They're like, well, why don't you stay? You seem happy. And so I think that's where the structure needs to change, right? So what we've been doing in my own department, because again, it's nice to say, like, what does that look like? So even for us, I didn't show this, but I was in charge of admissions and recruiting for my PhD program. And we had to kind of change the attitude of the professors in my department. Here's the crazy things that you think are okay to say that are not okay to say. Here are the things that aren't even crazy for you to say that are taken crazy by a student we want to recruit because you don't know that that's an offensive thing you're saying. And those were fights that we had to have in faculty meetings and other training sessions so that they could realize you're making a hostile environment for even recruiting students. Nonetheless, what it does for those of us who are colleagues in the department. So I think you've got to get people to realize that the things that they say and do, however they might think they're harmless, actually add harm. Because what we know, those of us that have climbed it and made it that far, when we see a red flag, not walking on it. So that's when you've got to change it. And then you've got to tell the young people, and one thing I like to do is that you can do this by being just who you are. Because I think we kind of grew up thinking if I had to not speak like that, I can't listen to these rappers, I can't have this music playing in my car, I've got to dress this way, and do my hair a certain way, and then they'll accept me. But that's not what we want to do or be. So I like to present myself as I am, and I like to encourage my high school scholars, my undergrad scholars, to be you, because your creativity and the way you view a problem is so necessary. And if they can feel that and then feel valued for that, then hopefully then they'll get funding and so on. But it's a lot of work, but it's also empowering young people that you can be you and contribute. And I think that's the thing we need to do.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for that. Please.
I wanted to ask, you touched on the coronavirus situation and having to speak to your family about their ideas and, conspiracy theories and things like that. I personally have dealt with that, not even just my family. I have friends who have the same thoughts going through their head, and it all stems from just Black people in general not having the best relationship with science of open. How do we speak to members of our community and try to convince them or try to get them to open up and to not be so distrusting of modern science as it has now from our culture? Our culture, you have more Latinos you have very ethnic groups who are getting involved in science here. How do we communicate about be this person kind of pull back from the picture?
So it's challenging, right? So I think we have to, the first thing I say, we cannot blame the people for the way that they feel, because many of them have had experiences with medical doctors, hospitals, that lead them to think these things. What I don't like is that people are like, oh, but Tuskegee, you weren't in that, like, let's stop, right? But I think the big thing we need to do is what I've been really, in some other conversations I have with certain other policy groups, we got to train the medical doctors better, right? They need to be culturally confident on what they are saying, doing, thinking, just like I got to train these professors about how they treat other people. But then when it gets to my own family, like when it comes to COVID, what really was the breaker for me was, y'all know these rich white people are running out here to get this vaccine? They gooped y'all because they all going to get it. They got y'all fooled to be like, don't go wait in line so they can rush to the front of the line and get this thing. If it's killing people, they going to get it and they ain't dying. Y'all over here dying without it. And they are coming into our neighborhoods to get it, lining up. So those of us that want it can't even get to it. How that work? And so it becomes even just challenging. Well, they, how they do us, and they don't get, even in the needle, they're gonna give us a different needle than they give the other people. How much time did that person have at that CVS? And don't you go down to the Black CVS down there on the corner of Swap Why do you, so it becomes that, but it also becomes listening to their concern and what happened in other areas, but then also me actually trying. But what also, there is misinformation everywhere, as we all know. But when they started doing the vaccine trials, I started trying to get my family to sign up again. Obese women, diabetes, they need those patients. None of us were getting called for the trial. But one was on the news. Black people aren't signing up for the vaccine trials. They don't trust this and they don't trust that. Y'all ain't calling us. And I've had multiple people sign up multiple times. No call. So that also leads to, see, they ain't trying to give it to us. Okay, but when it's free, let's go get it. So it is understanding where they are. And then again, as a scientist, I would show them videos of what it does. They're not changing your DNA. So just listening to all the things they're concerned about and helping them understand it in ways that they get it. And that's what we can do. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for trying. Keep pushing.
Can I just interrupt you a little bit? I think we will have several questions and we only have 10 more minutes. Can you please be very short with your questions so we can try to address them in this short period of time? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexa. I'm from University of Puerto Rico, and it was literally that same question. So I'll just piggyback. Instead of just communities, what advice do you have for us students that are going into grad school to sort of motivate other minority students to join science and start trusting science, especially when we see our parents not trust science, and like in our homes, that's something that's not necessarily talked about. So what advice do you have for us future leaders?
Yeah, no, that's a real one. I remember getting Dr. Bullock from this morning. He said as soon as he got his PhD, his grandma thought to ask about his back, right? I finished my PhD, was in cardiovascular, but in biomedical engineering, and my grandma was asking me all about her heart and all of her things. I think the challenging part is we have to condition our family for what the PhD process is. Because if they haven't been through it, mine did it, they don't get what's involved. We don't even really get it, but we can kind of see what our friends are going through, right? And I think especially with Black and brown students, there's a point where you have to push back on your family. I can't come home every break. I can't stay there all of these times. And when I tell students that, they're like, what? But it's my mom. Yes, but when you graduate, they will be there, they will celebrate you, and they will tell all of their friends about it. But you do have to get that degree. And the thing about grad school that I want us Black and brown people to realize is it takes work, but it is the work that you put in leads to you getting the degree. That is the equation, the work you put in to get the degree. And so that means we got to realize that, but they're not giving away PhDs, because if they were giving away, everybody would have one, right? So big thing, find an advisor and a supportive space. The advisor is the most important decision. My Packard people told me that when I was choosing. And then you've got to train your family into how to let me do the work that I need to do and support me when I need that support. Yeah.
Thank you. Microphone number 2, please.
Hello, my name is Kinde from Florida State University.
All right.
I noticed a lot of your ambitions and advocacy was close to your scientific work. How did you discern and also identify those same professionals that shared the same passions that you did?
Because I just talk to people. I think that's just the thing, right? And I'm open to so many things. Again, I thank my liberal arts education at Morehouse that we learned so many other different spaces, but then I'm also open to joining interdisciplinary working groups. So one of the working groups I joined at Georgia Tech was this race and racism in contemporary biomedicine with people from Spelman, Morehouse, and it was social scientists, sociologists, few natural scientists and political scientists, and really thinking about how to craft a solution. Because again, what I learned in that HIV/AIDS work and doing that, we can have the best scientific discovery and the best medicine, but if the people who you want it to get to don't believe it, won't take it, won't try it, it's no good. So when I was a scientist, I might have laughed at my English major friends and my anthropology friends, but guess what? Those are the people that will understand culture to get the science to the people. So I've done a lot of mea culpas and apologies and let's talk about how we can get this to work together. And I think it is this holistic team that's needed. So that's how you then build the best solutions. Yeah, thank you. Shout out to the anthropologists and science.
Hello.
What is your name, young lady?
My name is Kimla Fongay. I'm a high school senior. And my question is, when it comes to going to undergrad or grad school, you usually break into new friend groups and all that stuff. But sometimes these friend groups can also be based on cliques of you look the same, you do the same things, or you come from the same status and things like that.
or you're doing the same things. So what tips would you give on breaking those cliques and bringing them together?
Right. I think it's easy to fall into cliques if you're right. Because what we do, we have this, there's actually a physiological response. We feel comfortable when we find people that are like us, right? But that's what happens in the broader world, right? Why white people want to hire white people, why Chinese people want to hire Chinese people, because it just feels comfortable, right? Why black people want to hire black people. But you've got to then move past that. Recognize that this is comfortable and easy, but I do want to be open to other things if you want to be open, right? And I'll tell you, when I got into grad school, Packer, and again, shout out, going from HBCU to the white school, sadly, the white students did not want to be my friend or want to work in groups with me. But you know who did? The international students. And so I began to connect with them. We can get our work done. They also would hold some good potlucks and they would cook. They wanted potluck, they would cook. And I would bring like a Coca-Cola. And then that became a group that then we would do all of our different events. So I think if you find yourself feeling lulled and comfortable, break out, and notice that you need to break out.
Thank you. Let's do
Oh,
3 more students. So let's go first and then there's one more.
Good afternoon. I am Dakota Walker, a first semester senior at Fort Valley State University. My question was, you discussed how life happening around you affected you. However, we find ourselves, especially going to a HBCU, often doubting ourselves. So you personally, how did you find the need, the want, and the desire to continue outside of finding the need and the want in the world without putting yourself to the side first?
no, my professor at Morehouse, I don't know if they can still do it. They were super like pushing us forward. My chemistry freshman year professor, he called me Dr. Platt day one. And he called us Dr. Platt the whole semester. And that was like, Dr. Platt, that's cool. Dr. Platt. And then said that we can go do it. And what I learned from those professors, that's because what I learned of my professors, they had been out in the world. Many of them had been in industry, they'd done grad school, obviously, but some in industry, and came back and told us, listen, let me tell you what it takes to cut it and to make it. And I want you to, and you can do it. Here's what it takes. Now, if you want to play games and not do it, you ain't gonna cut it, but you have everything in you to do it. So even when feeling down on myself, what are you talking about? You better get in there. You know who invented calculus? Do you know who did this and who did that? And you sitting around trying to tell me you can't do this? That's not a thing that we will accept. And I think that's also when you get with a good friend group who also was like, what are you talking about? You're not gonna be able to study for this test. Yeah, we all gonna get together. We're gonna study for this test and we're gonna make sure you do it. And your friends that hold you accountable, that's why I say get a good crew. When you start to slip, they pull you back. And then when one of them start to slip, you got them up. And it is that collective, because if you take these individual messages, then they'll make you crazy. But also therapy, which I didn't do in undergrad, but I got into that in grad school. For sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
I don't know if I can reach it. Oh, I can.
I think you can remove it.
I'm 4'11", I'm sorry. My name is Thais. I'm a senior biology student at North Carolina A&T. And as an LGBT woman of color, I really appreciated you talking about Ellen and bringing up the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And also as an aspiring scientist, the more I'm not really in the field, but I'm trying to get in it. You get really angry and cynical at the government response because there's data out there, there's research out there, but federal policy is ignoring it or choosing to prioritize money over people. So I guess my question is, how do you combat that cynicism? How do you keep going even when you feel like you're being rejected or ignored?
No, that's a good one and a tough one, right? And there's so many different intersectional identities that are out there that get hit. Okay, so with my students, I'll say this. So first, I think it's important that we all are allies to everyone. Like everyone in this room should be an ally to somebody else, right? And I give this other talk when I do D&I training about privilege. We all have privileges that we may not recognize if we are some marginalized community. I have height privilege. I'm tall. I would have height privilege over you, allegedly. But there's all these other axes of privilege that we can show a space for someone who doesn't have that privilege. And so I think it's important to be an ally. I make space for LGBTQI students in my group, my lab, undergrad, and even in my classroom. And like, again, when I'm talking about science, I like to use inclusive examples for people to get it. But I think what will happen in that space is the work has to be good. That is the baseline for everything. The work has to be good. So one thing I try to get with my students, I'm gonna make you look as good as I can on paper. in black and white. And if you trust me, then when I put this opportunity here, you'll do it. We're gonna put that on that resume. This next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna get you with this paper, we're gonna do this conference, put that on your resume. Because if on paper it's tight, then when you walk in with all your identities, they're like, oh, get them to the paper. Say, hey, nice to meet you. I got in the door and now here's me, right? I had to do that as who I am in many different jobs because my name, Manu Platt, people don't know it's Black and Platt is like, what is that? And so a lot of times I'd walk and people like, oh, and I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. And then you sell them at that space. Once the paper's tight, so again, there's a Maya Angelou quote, nothing will work unless you do. Then we can talk about the rest because then there's legal ramifications, other things that can be worked around. So we could talk more afterwards about some other details if there's even some personal situations, but for everyone, the work has to be tight first, and then we can knock the rest kind of around. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. The young lady mentioned this earlier, but my name is Angie. I attend Valencia College in Florida, and I'm sorry. My name is Angie, and I attend Valencia College in Florida, and I'm a first generational college student. Not only that, like I wasn't born here, so I'm kind of like an immigrant, I would say. So my thing is, you do come from a family of like 6 brothers that have like educational background. How would you go about like not having family that like really like been to school, been to college, and like understand like your career pathways and choices?
Right. I mean, many of us don't have that in our family, right? First PhD in my family. You know, that's where you have to build your community. And as you build a community of mentors, some people say have your own board of directors, which are people who have different, like maybe there's someone who's doing something you're interested, someone who also knows your background and your experience, so they see where you're coming from. And then again, that's why I say the thing about being a good mentee. If they start to make suggestions to you that seem crazy, it could be because you just have no experience what's gonna go there. You don't know there's anyone that's done it. But if you trust them and they have not done you wrong, they're like, okay, I'm gonna give this a shot. I've had some mentors that have opened doors for me that I was like, I gotta show up where and do what? But the point was doing it and showing up, doing it well, ready to be excellent in that moment. And then like 15 doors might open up after that. So that's gonna take a level of trust of if you find mentors you trust, and then you need to, when they give you advice, follow that to the T and report back what happened. And then you will see, wow, these are the things that I had and that I can do. And then tell your family, this is why I was away all summer, because I was doing this thing. I know you all wanted me home to help with the home shop, but this actually will set me up for this, this, and this. And so I need you to understand that I need to do that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are running short on time, so I will make my announcements really brief. So again, we have next exhibit session from 1:30 to 4 p.m. Again, I definitely want to highlight our societies fair from 4 to 6 p.m. in the Ambassador Ballroom. Please, please, please come learn about membership and engagement in your professional STEM society for your discipline and learn about all the benefits and resources that they have for you. Again, we have all types of professional development sessions and workshops, especially on scholarships, internships, fellowships. So a lot of student-focused opportunities. We also have some faculty-focused sessions. So make sure to check the Hoover app for the rest of the sessions that are going on today and tomorrow. Dinner is on your own today. So, you know, get out, enjoy DC, enjoy and network with each other this evening. And we have the remaining presentation sessions again for today and tomorrow for the student oral and poster presentations. Make sure you check Hoover for those and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Come back up.